Hello and good afternoon. My name is Caroline Manny and I'm the Reference Instruction and Assessment Librarian here at Center. I also support instruction for Division II classes and Reference for Everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me this afternoon. I hope I can show you some ways the library can help you support student research in what's sure to be a really odd fall semester. I'm going to do a brief presentation of the library services that will be available during this fall semester. And if you have any general questions as I go along, just chime in either using your microphone or the chat. At the end of the presentation, there will also be plenty of time for questions that you held or more specific questions about your individual courses. And of course, you can always email the library at library@center.edu. So let's get started. A good many students and professors told me in the spring that they were forced to cancel student research projects, and other professors told me that the quality of the projects that they did receive, that they didn't cancel and that they received was much reduced. The quality was much reduced. Of course, both situations can at least in part be attributed to outside stresses that nobody could possibly plan for or control. For the fall, though, I think everybody is trying to predict and plan for as many contingencies as possible. With regards to research and preserving the normal writing and research assignments that you have in your classes, I think the key to success will be intentionally and explicitly scaffolding the research process into your research projects, like the process that we have on the screen right now. I think that's important because unlike in a normal semester, we can't count on students having the types of implicit, informal scaffolding that we normally have. I'm thinking about conversations I hear in the library where students working in groups, maybe two friends, one taking a class and the other who already took it, discuss together what the professor means by too broad a topic or not enough primary source support. And also, I'm thinking about conversations that students and faculty have. Some students may be less inclined or even unable due to social distancing constraints, or if they're attending online, to have those convenient before and after class conversations with professors about where they're stuck on a research project. So I think because of that, it'll be more important than ever to explicitly break down the research process into manageable chunks and explain what's expected at each one. The library can help with that. We have a website, which I'm going to take you to in a second, off the library's main web page that breaks down the research process into the steps that are shown here on the screen. Before I take you to that page, I want to explain why I'm taking you to that page so you don't think I'm just rambling about the research process and you already know the research process. I'm sharing this webpage with you to provide a resource for asynchronous learning for the students. It's a webpage that we as librarians send students to and that you can share with your students if they need a little extra help understanding the various steps of the research process, what you're expecting, what they should expect the research process to look like. So it can be a little extra help you can share with the students asynchronously. It also serves to demonstrate the areas where the library can work with you in your classes to support the research process. And maybe it'll provide some inspiration or ideas that you can run with while you're planning your classes. So let's go ahead and go over to that website. I'm going to take a second to change my screen share. When you're on the library's webpage, which is just library.center.edu, if you scroll down under How Do I and click on Start My Research, you get taken to this page where you can find links about how to select a topic, find information, find databases, etc. So I'm just going to take you on a brief tour of these. If I were to click on Formulate a Research Topic, for example, I get taken to a page with more tabs, choosing or defining your topic, narrowing your topic, developing a research question, and stating your working thesis. Each one of these tabs looks like this. It has, they usually have a little video and then some text that gives students some tips on how to do these things. So you can share this with your students, or you can invite us into your classes as librarians to kind of talk about these things with your students. There's a link for finding information, where to search, identifying keywords. That's something that students struggle with a lot. A lot of students will want to change their topic because, believe it or not, they try to search one way, they don't find what they want, and so they assume the information's not there and they just give up. So identifying keywords can be a really important thing that we can help students with. Different search strategies, citation mining, which is obvious to us as experienced researchers, but something that students really need to be explicitly told to do. Then we have a page on evaluating information, discussing the difference between popular and scholarly works, discussing the difference between primary and secondary works. If you're trying to communicate either one of those concepts to your students, this page might be helpful to you. And a page on, for example, the anatomy of a typical scholarly article. A lot of students find scholarly articles, but they're too dense. They don't know how to approach reading them. So a little bit of information on what preparing students to look at their first scholarly article and how to read and evaluate a scholarly article might be helpful. Then we also have a page that has information on how to use the sources that you finally find and evaluate to be valuable. What's the difference between quotes, paraphrases, and summaries, when to use them, how to use them, how to smoothly integrate the evidence that you're using, and how to synthesize information for like a literature review, that sort of thing. So these are all the types of things that students may have questions on, may need a little more information about, and you can send them to this page. And these are the types of things that we can come to your classes to help teach. On this same page, if you go to exercises to build research skills, that will take you to this page right here. And what we're doing here is sharing with you the types of exercises that we would use in class if you invited us to your classroom to help students with any stage of the research process. Why are we sharing this with you? Well, it may be in this very odd semester that you normally invited a librarian to your class, but this semester you simply can't give up the time to do that. But you'd like access to the exercises that we've already developed that we've proven work pretty well so that you can adapt them yourself or ask us to help adapt them for your specific assignment parameters. I'm also sharing them because maybe you'll glance through these and you'll get some inspiration for a type of exercise that you'll do in your class. Maybe you don't like the exercise itself, but it inspires you for something else. So these exercises are available. They're all in Word format so that you can edit them yourselves. They're divided up into the stages of the research process, again, formulating a topic, finding information, evaluating it, using it and incorporating it, all those types of activities that students may do. And once again, you can use these yourselves, adapt them however you want. You can ask us you can give us an assignment and say, can you adapt one of your activities to help students find information or incorporate information based on this assignment that my students have in my class. And then we can work with you to adapt that assignment so that it works for your class. And then you can give it to the students and have them work on it asynchronously if you'd like. Or we can still, this fall, come into your classes via Zoom and lead students through these activities. We would do it with Zoom running so that your students who are attending outside of, synchronously, but outside of the room, maybe from their home in another state because they couldn't get back to campus, or from their dorm room because they're being isolated, quarantined at the moment, but they can still attend classes. We can do our lessons on Zoom so that everybody can attend synchronously. Or the other option is that if you would normally like to invite us into the classroom, but again, you just don't have the time to give to that, we can record a video. And the video would be interactive. It wouldn't just be us flapping our jaws for five minutes or 15 minutes or however long was required for the information you wanted us to present. It would be interactive with student and student content engagement so that they could work either individually or in groups asynchronously on the same type of information that we would normally present if we came to your class in a normal semester. So that is always an option, and we want people to be aware of that. Moving along, some professors may be thinking, what about the books? For a lot of library sessions that professors ask us to do, they want the students to actually physically come into the library and be shown in the stacks or in reference where physical materials are and how to find them, to be encouraged to actually pick the books up, look through their tables of contents, and kind of do exploratory research and preliminary background information research by actually handling physical materials. One of the questions we've been getting is, how's that going to work in the fall? Well, the library is going to be closed for a good portion of the fall semester, closed stacks, for two reasons. The first one is that we are following American Library Association guidelines to close our book stacks for safety reasons during the pandemic. And the second and more pressing reason is that the library is under construction, going to be under construction probably until maybe even as late as November for the new Learning Commons. So we won't have access to the library due to construction. So the way that checkout of physical materials is going to work is students will identify, students and faculty will go on like they've been doing this summer. They'll identify what book they want to check out, send us a request to check it out, and then we will retrieve the books, check them out to the individual patron, and then get the books to them either through campus mail or through a pickup location. That hasn't been entirely decided yet, or it could be both. So that's how that's going to work. But then how can we accommodate the whole serendipity of finding the perfect inspiration from a book by browsing the shelves? Well, there is a way that we can simulate that. So I'm going to go ahead and share that screen with you. You should again be looking at the main library's website. Please put in the chat if you're not seeing it. Let's suppose that you would normally invite your students into the library to browse the shelves and do background research, and one of them has chosen to do their research on the American Civil War. They haven't got their topic any more narrowed down than that. Normally we would take them over to the E's and let them browse over there. That's not going to be possible this semester. But if we type in American Civil War as a browsing term and then go to any one of the books that come up from that search, you'll notice that we then have a browse the shelf option. So if I click on that, what that does is it shows me all the books that were around that book that I chose on the shelves. And I can just keep clicking through these and looking at the titles and looking at the covers to see which ones might look interesting to me. And maybe this one is interesting to me. So I can click on that, and here I am. I can view the description, and I can see the table of contents in the book, some of the subjects of the book. So that will still maybe give me an idea of things that I should look up, ways that I might focus my research. So we can still find some ways to simulate that browsing the stacks. They're not as good. I'm not going to try to argue that they are, but we can still simulate that in certain ways. Okay, how else can the library help to support student research this fall? In addition to doing library sessions with your classes, synchronously or asynchronously, like we've always been able to do, another service that we've always provided and that we will continue to provide is to create research guides for your classes. Research guides are specific to your, can be, often are, specific to your assignment parameters, your writing or research assignment parameters, and they can include multiple types of resources or information. For those of you who aren't familiar with what exactly a research guide is, I'm going to show a couple of those. This is an example of a very basic research guide. Again, I'm showing these to you to give you inspiration about the types of things that you might ask the library to help you with, to put together to support your classes. So I'm going to show you a kind of variety of different things that we can put into research guides. This one's a very basic one. For this particular class, the professor was interested in the library helping students find information. Not a whole lot more. So this professor wants the students to do exploratory research using reference materials. He wants the students to use books as references and scholarly articles. And because this is history, he was particularly interested in the students accessing primary documents, preferably ones in the library, but also there could possibly be some online. So this research guide is basically a composition of all the different types of information sources that are available for this particular research topic. This research guide is similar, also for history. It gives students reference sources, primary sources, secondary sources in books and articles, but it also puts a little bit of pedagogical information that the professor wanted the students to have right at hand on how to read primary sources and how to read secondary sources in this particular discipline. So the professor provided this type of information and we included it in the guide. So including some pedagogical help is also a possibility. In this research guide, this is for anthropology, we were using a somewhat unusual information source to help students find information. It was newspapers.com. So we embedded a video in the research guide on how to use newspapers.com. I came to the class and I showed the students and we did an exercise on it, but we also left a brief, I think this video is less than 5 minutes, reference so that when students went back and actually did the research 5 weeks later and didn't remember what I showed them in class, they had this reference. So that sort of thing is a possibility in research guides. Now this research guide gets a little bit more specific. For this class, the professor wanted a research guide that broke the research process down into steps for the students. So we have finding the piece of legislation or public policy the student was supposed to work with, finding popular sources to learn about that legislation's goals, and then finding scholarly sources to analyze the legislation and the success or potential success of the legislation, how to cite the sources, and how to manage your references. So this LibGuide or research guide actually breaks the research process down into steps for the students to follow. Some research guides, this one is for a variety of politics classes, don't contain information on where to find information at all. They contain information on what to do with the stuff that you find. So for example, this research guide is on the basics of how to write a policy brief as a political science major. And similarly, we have another one that is about how to write political speeches. There are lots of different things that you might be inspired to have us as librarians put into a research guide. So feel free to reach out to us to either come to your classes to actually describe what we've put together in a research guide and walk students through it so they know how to use it. Or we can record a video of walking students through the research guide so they know how to use it and they can watch it on their own time. Or we can just create a research guide for you, give you the link, and then you can do with it what you need to do in the class. Any of those types of things are an option and still a service that we'll be offering to support research this fall. What else will we be doing this fall to support research? Obviously, we will continue one-on-one instruction with the students. In the past and continuing this fall, some professors have asked us to meet either as a requirement for the class or as a suggestion with the class, individually with all the students in their class. You can certainly still encourage your students to come see us, or you can require them to make an appointment with us on a particular research skill, finding information, identifying keywords to find information, narrowing a topic, whatever. And we will be doing those appointments with students. We can do them on Zoom so that if the student needs or wants to socially distance, that is an option for them. So we will be continuing that service. And finally, I wanted to talk about reserves. In the past, often professors will have put reference materials that they want the entire class to look at on hard copy reserve in the library. Again, because of safety concerns and because of the construction, it will not be possible for us to do hard copy reserves this fall. So what we will be doing is, we can digitize within copyright limits supplemental materials and put them in your Moodle course, or we can work with you to find alternative materials online that you can share with your students. And in fact, Jasmine is going to be doing a little presentation similar to this one on that later on in July. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so those are the ways that the library can help you support research this coming fall. And I'd like to stop now to see if there are any questions.